Kiss the coldest man in this bar, Chloe, or admit nobody here would ever want you. The laughter hit harder than the dare. Chloe Bennett stood beneath the blue neon glow of Black Harbor, a crowded downtown Chicago bar where polished people came to be seen and wished the floor would open beneath her sensible black heels. At 28, Chloe had learned how to survive cruel jokes with a tight smile and lowered eyes. She was a plus-size event coordinator who spent her days making wealthy clients feel important while quietly working overtime to cover her mother's medical bills. She was dependable, intelligent, and kind enough to remember every server's name, but the people around her usually noticed her curves before they noticed anything else. Tonight was supposed to be a harmless birthday gathering for her co-worker Madison, yet it had become another public reminder that Chloe was considered the easiest person in the room to embarrass. Madison waved a $100 bill between two manicured fingers. "Come on, one kiss. You could use the practice." More laughter followed, including a sharp laugh from Trevor, the co-worker who had once asked Chloe out as a joke and later claimed she had misunderstood him. Heat climbed into her face, but she refused to let them see her cry. She followed Madison's pointing finger toward the darkest corner of the bar. A man sat alone in a charcoal suit, one hand resting beside an untouched glass of bourbon. He was broad-shouldered, motionless, and so controlled that the noise seemed to bend around him. Two men in tailored coats stood several feet behind him, watching every entrance. No one approached his table. No one even looked at him for long. His name was Roman DeLuca, though Chloe had never heard it. To the city's criminal underworld, he was the Mafia Boss who controlled shipping routes, private clubs, and half the favors owed between Chicago and New York. Wealthy men lowered their voices when he entered a room. Dangerous men checked over their shoulders when they heard his name. Roman was 36, feared for his patience and respected for never making the same threat twice. Betrayal had taken his younger brother 6 years earlier, and since then he had treated trust like a loaded weapon. He had come to Black Harbor for a private meeting, not entertainment, and certainly not romance. Yet from the moment Chloe's group began laughing, his grey eyes had been fixed on her. He noticed the way she straightened her shoulders after each insult. He noticed how she thanked the exhausted waitress who delivered their drinks. He noticed that when Trevor bumped a busboy and sent a tray crashing to the floor, Chloe was the only person who immediately knelt to help gather the broken glasses. Roman had spent years surrounded by beautiful people who performed kindness when they wanted something. The woman being mocked across the room had shown it when she believed nobody important was watching. "I'm not doing it," Chloe said, pushing the money back toward Madison. Trevor smirked. "Why not? Afraid he'll laugh too?" That landed exactly where he intended. Chloe looked toward the stranger again and found him watching her with an expression she could not read. He did not look amused. He looked alert, almost as if her answer mattered. Pride rose through the ache in her chest. She was tired of shrinking so cruel people could feel taller. "Fine," she said. The table erupted in cheers as Chloe crossed the bar, each step growing heavier. Roman's guards shifted, but he lifted one finger, and they became still. Chloe stopped beside his table, close enough to smell cedarwood and rain on his coat. Up close, he was even more intimidating, with a faint scar near his jaw and eyes that seemed to measure every secret she had ever kept. "My friends dared me to kiss the coldest man in the room," she said, forcing herself to hold his gaze. "You looked like the obvious choice." For 1 second, nothing moved. Then Roman leaned back slightly. "They are not your friends." His voice was low, calm, and certain. Chloe's smile faltered because no one had ever defended her so quickly, not even in private. "Probably not," she admitted. "May I?" Roman studied her face, not her body, and that simple restraint unsettled her more than staring would have. "You may," he said. Chloe bent down and pressed a brief kiss to his cheek, intending to turn away before humiliation could catch her again. But Trevor's voice rang across the room. "That barely counts. Guess even she has standards." Roman's hand closed gently around Chloe's wrist, stopping her without hurting her. The entire bar seemed to lose its breath. He rose to his full height, placed himself between Chloe and the laughing table, and looked directly at Trevor. "You dared her to kiss the coldest man here." Roman said. "Now you are going to learn why no one else was foolish enough to approach me." Chloe had no idea who he was, but when every security man in the bar suddenly lowered his head, she realized the stranger she had kissed was not merely feared. He owned the fear in the room. Roman DeLuca did not raise his voice, yet the laughter died as if someone had cut the power. Trevor's smirk vanished first. Madison slowly lowered the $100 bill. Even the bartender stopped polishing a glass. Chloe stood behind Roman's shoulder, still feeling the warmth of his fingers where he had released her wrist, and watched every person in the room react to him with the same instinctive fear. One of the men near the entrance stepped forward. "Mr. DeLuca, your guests are waiting upstairs." The name moved through the bar in whispers. DeLuca. Chloe had heard it only in passing, usually followed by lowered voices and unfinished sentences. Roman did not look away from Trevor. "Apologize to her," Trevor swallowed. "Look, this was just a joke." Roman took one step closer. He did not threaten him. He did not need to. A joke is supposed to make everyone laugh. Trevor glanced toward the exits, but Roman's men were already there. "I'm sorry, Chloe," he muttered. Roman's expression remained cold. "Use her full name." Chloe's breath caught. No one at work ever bothered to say her last name unless they were blaming her for something. Trevor's face reddened. "I'm sorry, Chloe Bennett." Roman turned toward Madison. "And you?" Madison stared at him as though she had forgotten how to speak. "I'm sorry." "For what?" Roman asked. Her eyes flicked toward Chloe. "For humiliating you." Chloe should have felt triumphant, but the whole scene made her uneasy. She had spent years learning to handle cruelty quietly. Watching a feared stranger tear it apart with 3 calm sentences felt less like rescue and more like standing too close to a storm. "That's enough," she said softly. Roman looked at her, and the hard line of his face changed by the smallest degree. "Is it?" "Yes." Chloe stepped beside him instead of remaining behind him. Her hands trembled, but she kept her chin lifted. "I don't need them terrified. I just needed them to stop." For the first time that night, something like interest appeared in Roman's eyes. Most people asked him for more once they realized what his power could do. Chloe was the first to ask him to use less. He glanced toward the bartender. "Their bill is closed. They are leaving." Trevor started to protest, but the bartender was already collecting their glasses. Madison grabbed her purse. Within minutes, Chloe's co-workers disappeared into the cold Chicago night without looking back. Chloe remained beside the table, suddenly aware that she had just been abandoned in a bar with the most dangerous man in the city. "You could have left with them," Roman said. "They're my ride." "Not anymore." Chloe folded her arms. "Do you always rearrange strangers' evenings?" "Only when their friends mistake cruelty for entertainment." "They're co-workers. That is worse." Roman gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." Chloe did not move. Was that an order? His gaze held hers. Then unexpectedly he pulled the chair out himself. An invitation. She sat, mostly because her knees had started to feel unreliable. Roman returned to his seat, leaving several feet of polished wood between them. The distance seemed intentional, as though he understood she needed room more than charm. A waitress approached, nervous enough to nearly spill the water. Chloe recognized her as Elena, the woman she had thanked earlier. "Could I get a club soda with lime?" Chloe asked. Roman noticed she did not order alcohol. "Driving?" he asked when Elena left. "My mother has an early appointment tomorrow. I need a clear head." "Hospital," Chloe stiffened. "Why would you assume that?" Roman's eyes dropped to the folded billing statement protruding from her handbag, the hospital logo barely visible. Observation. Embarrassment flashed across her face as she pushed the paper deeper into the bag. "She needs surgery. I'm handling it." "Alone?" "That's usually how handling things works." Roman recognized the answer because he had used versions of it for years. Before he could respond, Chloe's attention shifted toward the mezzanine above them. A silver serving tray reflected a sliver of movement near the upstairs railing. A man in a dark jacket was reaching inside his coat while watching Roman. Chloe's body reacted before her mind caught up. Move. She lunged across the table and shoved Roman's shoulder just as a glass shattered behind his chair. Roman's guards surged forward. The man upstairs vanished through a service door. Roman pulled Chloe down beside the table, shielding her with his body while the bar erupted in screams. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No." Her eyes were wide, but her voice remained steady. Roman looked at the mark where the projectile had struck the wall. It had not been aimed to kill. It had carried a small metal capsule now rolling beneath the table. One of his guards picked it up with a cloth. Inside was a photograph of Roman entering the bar, taken less than an hour earlier. On the back, 4 words had been written in black ink. "We know what you lost." Roman's face became unreadable, but Chloe saw his hand tighten. She had not merely stumbled into an embarrassing dare. She had stepped into a war. "You need to go home," Roman said. Chloe looked toward the service door. "That man saw me push you." Roman was silent because she was right. Whoever had sent the warning had now seen her face. His phone vibrated. A photograph appeared on the screen, taken from across the street only minutes earlier. It showed Chloe entering Black Harbor. Beneath it was a message that made Roman's blood turn cold. "The woman is not part of this, unless you make her part of it." Roman read the message twice, then turned the phone face down before Chloe could see more. "You are coming with me," he said. Chloe stared at him from beside the overturned table. "That sounds less like protection and more like kidnapping." "If I meant to kidnap you, you would not be standing here arguing." The answer was cold, but his hand remained open between them, giving her the choice to take it. Sirens began wailing in the distance. Roman's men sealed the exits while the bartender guided the remaining customers toward the kitchen. Chloe looked at the shattered glass, the metal capsule, and the service door where the stranger had disappeared. Then she looked at Roman. "My mother is alone." "She will not be." Roman motioned to his head of security, Vincent Hale, a lean man with silver at his temples. "Send 2 people to Mrs. Bennett's apartment, quietly." Chloe's eyes sharpened. "You already know where she lives." Vincent hesitated for half a second. It was enough. Roman's jaw tightened. "I had your name checked after you crossed the room." "Before or after I kissed you?" she asked. "Before you sat down." Hurt flickered across her face. "So while I thought you were being kind, you were investigating me." Roman stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "Someone photographed you before you reached my table. I needed to know whether you were part of the threat." "And? Am I?" "No. You sound very sure for a man who trusts nobody." Roman held her gaze. "You pushed me out of the path without knowing who fired. People pretending to save me usually make certain there is an audience." Chloe did not answer. Vincent returned with her coat and phone. "The rear vehicle is ready." Roman placed Chloe's coat around her shoulders instead of handing it to her. The gesture was careful, almost formal, but it silenced the anger gathering behind her eyes. "I will get you to your mother," he said. "Then I will find out who brought you into this." Outside, freezing rain streaked the windows of a black SUV. Roman sat across from Chloe as Chicago's neon lights blurred past them. 2 security vehicles followed close behind. Chloe called her mother and forced warmth into her voice, saying the party had ended early and that she would be home soon. She did not mention bullets, mafia bosses, or the armed men now guarding the building. When the call ended, Roman noticed her fingers shaking. He removed his gloves and placed them on the seat between them. "Your hands are cold." "I'm scared, not cold." Both can be true. She looked at the gloves but did not take them. "Who sent that message?" "A man named Victor Sorrento." Roman's voice hardened. "He controls what remains of a rival organization on the South Side. He believes I ordered his brother's death." "Did you?" "No." Chloe waited, but Roman offered nothing more. "Then why does he believe it?" "Because someone inside my organization gave him evidence." The SUV slowed near Chloe's apartment building. Police lights flashed at the end of the block, but none were close enough to explain the knot forming in Roman's stomach. Vincent's voice came through the speaker. "We have a problem. Mrs. Bennett is safe, but someone entered the apartment before our team arrived." Chloe reached for the door handle. Roman caught her wrist gently but firmly. "Wait, my mother is in there. And if the intruder stayed behind, running inside helps no one." She pulled free. "You don't get to decide what happens to my family. Tonight I do if the alternative gets you killed." The words struck too hard. Chloe's face changed, not into fear, but disappointment. Roman released the door lock. "Stay behind me." They entered through the lobby, Vincent ahead and 2 guards behind. Chloe's apartment door stood open on the 3rd floor. Inside, every drawer had been emptied. Her mother, Helen, sat unharmed on the couch beneath a blanket, guarded by one of Roman's men. Chloe rushed to her and knelt beside her. "Mom, are you okay?" Helen touched her daughter's face. "I'm fine. They only wanted the blue folder." Chloe froze. Roman noticed. "What blue folder?" "Nothing important. Someone broke into your home for it." Chloe stood, putting herself between Roman and her mother. "It belongs to a client from work. I found it in a conference room after an event last week. I planned to return it." Vincent picked up a torn envelope from the floor. Inside were copies of shipping invoices bearing Roman DeLuca's company seal. Roman's eyes narrowed. "These are forged." Chloe looked confused. "I didn't know what they were." Vincent's phone rang. He listened, then turned toward Roman. "The police just received an anonymous report claiming Miss Bennett stole financial records from DeLuca Holdings." Chloe's face drained of colour. Roman took the envelope and saw her fingerprints smeared across the paper. The trap was precise. She had been photographed near him, linked to stolen documents, and placed inside an active conspiracy in a single night. Then Trevor appeared in the open doorway behind them, breathing hard and holding Chloe's missing blue folder. "I told them everything," he said. "She's been spying on DeLuca for weeks." Chloe stared at him in disbelief. Roman's men reached for their weapons, but Trevor raised both hands. "Check her office computer. Check her bank account. Someone paid her $50,000 yesterday." Roman looked at Chloe. She looked wounded, furious, and utterly blindsided. Before she could speak, her phone chimed. A banking alert glowed across the screen, confirming a deposit she had never seen before. Roman's expression became unreadable. Chloe stepped away from him as if his silence hurt more than Trevor's accusation. "You said you were sure I wasn't part of this." Roman studied the evidence, then looked into the eyes of the woman who had risked her life to save his. "I was," he said. A second message arrived on his phone from Victor Sorrento. "Deliver Chloe Bennett by midnight, or her mother's surgery will never happen." Roman's phone remained in his hand as the midnight demand burned across the screen, but he did not look at Chloe with suspicion. He looked at Trevor. "Who told you about the money?" Trevor's eyes darted toward Vincent before dropping to the floor. The movement lasted less than a second, yet Roman saw it. "No one," Trevor stammered. "I checked her account myself." Chloe stepped forward. "You don't even know which bank I use." Trevor's mouth opened, but no answer came. Roman moved between him and the apartment door. "You have one chance to tell the truth." Trevor's shoulders collapsed. "Madison gave me the folder. She said Chloe stole it, and that I had to bring it here after the police report was filed." "Why would you help her?" Chloe asked. Trevor looked ashamed for the first time. "She had photographs of me taking money from company accounts. She said she would send them to the police." "Did she make the deposit too?" Roman asked. Trevor nodded. "She knew Chloe's payroll information. She handles reimbursements for the office." Chloe's humiliation turned into anger. The birthday party, the dare, and the cruel laughter had not been random. Someone had pushed her toward Roman on purpose. "Madison chose that table," she whispered. "She kept telling me to kiss you even after I refused." Roman's expression hardened. The dare was the first move. He turned to Vincent. "Take Trevor downstairs. No one speaks to him until I do." Vincent reached for Trevor's arm, but Helen suddenly rose from the couch. "Wait." Her voice was weak, yet the fear in it stopped everyone. She looked at Vincent as if recognizing a face from a nightmare. "I have seen you before." Vincent's hand went still. Roman shifted closer to Chloe and her mother. "Where?" Helen pressed a trembling palm against her chest. 6 years ago at St. Catherine's Hospital, the night Roman DeLuca's brother died. Silence filled the damaged apartment. Roman's face lost all emotion, which Chloe had already learned meant something inside him was breaking. "You knew Luca?" he asked. Helen nodded. "I was his night nurse." Roman stepped forward. His medical report said he never regained consciousness. That report was changed. Vincent's gaze sharpened, but Roman did not look away from Helen. She continued carefully. "Your brother woke for less than a minute. He was frightened. He kept saying that someone had opened the warehouse gate from inside." Roman's voice dropped. "Did he give you a name?" Helen looked directly at Vincent. "He said Vince." Vincent reached inside his coat. Roman moved first, catching his wrist before he could draw the weapon. One of the guards pinned Vincent against the wall, but he twisted free long enough to strike the lamp, plunging half the room into darkness. Chloe pulled her mother down as a gunshot shattered the ceiling. Roman drove Vincent into the wall and disarmed him, yet Vincent kicked open the rear fire door and escaped onto the stairwell before the guards could close in. Roman started after him, but Chloe grabbed his sleeve. The folder. She rushed toward the overturned cabinet and pulled loose a section of blue cardboard Trevor had dropped. Hidden inside the folder's spine was a small memory card. "My mother gave this to me last week," she confessed. "I didn't find the folder at work. She asked me to hide it after someone began following her." Roman stared at her. "You lied to protect her." "She was already sick. I thought the records involved hospital fraud, not your family." Helen took Chloe's hand. "The card contains the original emergency room log and a recording from Luca's room. I copied them before Vincent's people replaced the files." Roman's control finally cracked. He turned away, one hand braced against the wall, as 6 years of grief shifted beneath him. The man he had trusted with his life had helped murder his brother, then built a false trail leading to Victor Sorrento. Chloe moved closer, but did not touch him until he looked at her. "I'm sorry," she said. Roman's eyes were colder than before, but the cold was no longer directed at her. "I accused the wrong enemy for 6 years. You can still stop the right one." He looked at the woman who had been mocked less than an hour earlier and realized she was now standing inside his darkest secret without asking for money, power, or escape. She was frightened, but she had not abandoned her mother or him. Roman removed his coat and wrapped it around Chloe's shoulders. "You should hate me for bringing this to your door." "You didn't bring it here," she said. "Vincent did. I trusted him. Then let this be the moment you trust someone better." Their eyes held in the dim apartment, the distance between them disappearing for one quiet breath. Roman lifted his hand and gently wiped a streak of dust from her cheek. "I believe you, Chloe Bennett." It was not an apology, but from a man who trusted no one, it sounded like a vow. He ordered 2 guards to take Helen through the front entrance while he secured the memory card. Chloe helped her mother into her shoes, unaware that Vincent had already cut power to the hallway cameras. Minutes later, Roman received a call from the driver assigned to Helen. The armored vehicle had never reached the entrance. Roman ran downstairs with Chloe beside him, but the curb was empty, and one guard lay unconscious near the service alley. Chloe's phone began to ring from an unknown number. She answered, and Vincent's voice came through the speaker. "Bring the memory card to Pier 9 before midnight. Roman, come alone, or Chloe Bennett loses her mother the same way you lost your brother." Roman checked the clock above the apartment lobby. 11:18 p.m. 42 minutes remained before midnight. Chloe stood beneath the harsh fluorescent light with his coat wrapped around her, her face pale but steady. "You are not going to Pier 9 alone," she said. "That was Vincent's condition. Vincent also framed me, murdered your brother, and kidnapped my mother. I don't think honesty is one of his strengths." Roman looked toward the unconscious guard being treated near the service alley. Every instinct demanded that he lock Chloe inside an armored vehicle and surround her with men, but he had seen what happened when powerful people made decisions for her. "What are you proposing?" he asked. Chloe held out her hand. "Give me the memory card." Roman's expression hardened. "No, he thinks I'm frightened and useless. Let him keep thinking that." "You are frightened." "Of course I am. Courage is what happens after fear arrives." The words struck something deep inside him. Roman had spent years confusing control with strength, yet Chloe stood in a ruined apartment building, facing the man who had taken her mother and refused to surrender her dignity. He placed the memory card in her palm. "You stay beside me." "That sounds like an order." "It is a request I am not emotionally prepared to hear you refuse." Despite everything, a faint smile touched her lips. By 11:41, Roman's convoy stopped 2 blocks from Pier 9, a frozen industrial stretch along the Chicago River where abandoned warehouses stood beneath rusted cranes. Snow had begun falling, softening the city lights while armed men moved through the shadows. Roman had called Victor Sorrento during the drive and sent him a copy of Luca's hospital recording. Victor had listened to the dying man named Vincent, then agreed to bring 6 trusted men. The enemy Roman had blamed for years was now helping him confront the traitor who had manipulated them both. It was Vincent's greatest mistake. At 11:48, Roman and Chloe entered the warehouse alone, at least according to the cameras Vincent controlled. Sodium lights cast long yellow bars across the concrete. Helen sat tied to a chair near the loading platform, frightened but conscious. Vincent stood behind her with a handgun while Madison waited beside a metal barrel, wearing the same red dress from the bar. Chloe stopped. "You were working with him." Madison gave a bitter laugh. "I spent 3 years arranging events for powerful men while you received every promotion because clients trusted you. They remembered your kindness. They barely remembered my name." Chloe stared at her. "So you humiliated me because people respected my work? I put you near Roman because Vincent needed a believable thief. No one would question why a lonely woman accepted money from a mafia boss after kissing him." Roman stepped slightly in front of Chloe. "You mistook her loneliness for weakness." Vincent pressed the weapon closer to Helen. Card on the floor. Chloe reached into Roman's coat pocket and removed the memory card. "Release my mother first." "You are in no position to negotiate." Chloe looked at Madison instead of Vincent. "He will kill you after he gets this." Madison's confidence flickered. Vincent's eyes shifted toward her, confirming the truth more clearly than any confession could. Chloe saw it and moved. She threw the memory card toward the barrel, not toward Vincent. Madison lunged for it. Vincent turned his weapon and Roman crossed the distance in 3 strides. A shot cracked through the warehouse. Roman staggered as the bullet tore across his upper arm, but he drove Vincent into a steel support beam. Chloe rushed to Helen, pulling the chair behind a forklift while Madison scrambled across the floor for the card. "Mom, can you stand? My ankle is tied." Chloe found a broken piece of metal and cut through the plastic restraint. Behind them, Roman and Vincent fought beneath the swinging warehouse lights. Vincent reached for the fallen gun, but Chloe kicked it beneath a shipping pallet. He turned toward her with murder in his eyes. "You should have stayed the joke at the bar." Chloe stepped between him and her mother. "And you should have learned that being underestimated is not the same as being powerless." The warehouse doors exploded open as Victor's men entered from the east, and Roman's guards closed in from the west. Madison raised the memory card above the burning barrel. "One more step and the evidence disappears." Chloe looked at her calmly. "That is not the evidence." Madison froze. Chloe held up her phone. During the entire confrontation, it had been streaming audio and video to Roman's attorney, the police, and 3 federal investigators whose contact information had been stored in the folder. Helen's original files had already been copied. The card in Madison's hand was blank. Sirens rose outside. Vincent made one final attempt to reach Chloe, but Roman caught him and forced him to the floor despite the blood soaking his sleeve. "You murdered my brother," Roman said. "You used her family to hide it. Now the whole city will hear you confess." Vincent was restrained as officers entered. Madison dropped the card and began begging, but Chloe did not look at her. She hurried to Roman, pressing both hands against his wounded arm. "You're bleeding. I have had worse. That does not make this acceptable." He looked at her with something warmer than gratitude. "Your mother is safe, and you stepped in front of a bullet. I told you to stay beside me." Chloe's eyes filled, but she refused to let the tears fall. Roman lifted his uninjured hand and touched her cheek. Around them, police lights flashed across broken windows, while Vincent's empire of lies collapsed before midnight. Then a federal agent approached holding Chloe's phone. "There is one more recording you both need to hear." He pressed play, and Luca DeLuca's final words filled the warehouse. Vincent was not the only name he had spoken. Before the recording ended, Roman heard the identity of the person who had ordered his brother's death, and the truth made even Vincent look terrified. The recording crackled through the warehouse, and Luca DeLuca's weakened voice whispered the name Roman had trusted since childhood. Uncle Marco ordered it. Vincent opened the gate. Roman went completely still. Marco DeLuca had raised him after his father died, advised every major decision, and comforted him at Luca's funeral. He had also spent 6 years feeding Roman false evidence against Victor Sorrento, while quietly stealing control of DeLuca Holdings. Vincent began laughing from the floor. You built your empire beside the man who destroyed your family. Roman's wounded hand curled into a fist, but Chloe stepped in front of him before rage could decide his next move. Snow drifted through the broken warehouse windows, catching in her dark hair as she held his gaze. "Do not give Marco one more thing," she said softly. "Not your freedom, not the man your brother believed you could still be." The entire room waited. Roman looked past her at Vincent, then slowly lowered his hand. "Take him alive," he ordered. Federal agents removed Vincent and Madison while Victor's men withdrew without violence. By 12:07 a.m., Marco DeLuca was arrested at his Lake Forest estate while attempting to board a private helicopter. The recording, the forged invoices, and Chloe's live transmission connected him to Luca's murder, financial fraud, and the plot against Helen. Roman could have hidden the scandal to protect his power. Instead, he released every piece of evidence and surrendered the illegal accounts Marco had created in his name. Choosing the truth cost him alliances, millions of dollars, and the loyalty of men who respected fear more than honor. He made the choice without hesitation. At the hospital, Chloe sat beside him while a doctor stitched the wound in his arm. Helen was being examined down the hall, and for the first time all night, the danger had quieted. Roman watched Chloe twist the sleeve of his coat between her fingers. "You should sleep," he said. "You were shot protecting me and my mother. You don't get to tell me to relax. I was not protecting you because you were helpless." Chloe looked up. Roman's voice softened. "I protected you because your life matters to me." Her eyes filled with the tears she had refused to shed at the bar, in the apartment, and inside the warehouse. "You met me 3 hours ago." 3 hours was enough to watch you stand up after people tried to humiliate you, save my life, expose a traitor, and walk into danger for your mother. He reached for her hand but stopped before touching it. "May I?" Chloe remembered asking him the same question before the kiss that had changed everything. This time she placed her hand in his. "You may." 6 weeks later, Helen received the surgery she needed. Roman did not secretly erase the bill or use money to control Chloe's gratitude. He arranged a legitimate medical foundation for families facing the same impossible choices and asked Chloe to oversee its events because she was the most capable coordinator he had ever met. She accepted only after negotiating her own salary, authority, and schedule. Roman agreed to every condition with the faintest hint of pride. Trevor confessed his role and lost his position. Madison faced prosecution, but Chloe refused every interview that asked her to turn the betrayal into entertainment. She no longer needed cruel people to understand her worth. At the first Foundation gala, Chloe entered Black Harbor wearing a deep blue dress that followed every curve she had once tried to hide. The same room where laughter had chased her across the floor now fell silent for a different reason. Roman waited beside the table in the darkest corner, still powerful, still controlled, but no longer alone. He crossed the room before anyone could approach her and offered his hand in front of everyone. "No dares tonight," he said. Chloe smiled. "That depends. Are you still the coldest man in the bar?" Roman placed his coat around her shoulders, though the room was warm. "Not when you are in it." He kissed her gently, not because a crowd demanded it, but because she chose him, and he had finally learned how to be chosen without fear. Months later, Roman converted the last of Marco's criminal operations into legitimate businesses and created a safer future that did not depend on violence. Chloe stood beside him through every difficult decision, never behind him and never beneath him. She had not changed her body to become worthy of love. She had simply stopped apologizing for taking up space. Roman had not rescued a broken woman. He had recognized a strong one, and she had shown a feared man that tenderness was not weakness. One cruel dare brought them together, but courage, trust, and respect gave them a home. Would you have crossed that bar to kiss the coldest man in the room, or would you have walked away before discovering the heart he hid from everyone? Subscribe to the channel for more emotional Mafia Boss stories, where the woman everyone underestimates becomes the one person powerful enough to change everything.